Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining for today's session. And today's we will be having the AI readiness gap. Why people are like your organizations are moving at different speeds. My name is Ashwini. I'll be your moderator for today's session. We will be guiding you through today's webinar and helping you explore key insights in the discussion throughout the session. The most organizations are investing in a AI, one one front while ignoring others. Tools get deployed before the people are ready. Teams get trained before workflows gets redesigned. The results are the same every time. Momentum stalls and no one can explain why. The session introduced a structured way to look at the AI readiness across two parallel tracks and the practical framework for the moving both forward at the same time. And today we have two excellent speakers with us, Mr. Ben and Mr. Kristen, who will walk you through step by step about this webinar today. Over to you, Ben and Kristen.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Christian, you're all set? You ready?
Yeah, let's do this, Ben. I'm looking forward to it.
You took your
Welcome, everybody.
glasses off. You had your glasses on in the pre-run. So are you
They'll
getting
go
all
on and off.
fancy?
They'll go on and off throughout.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. We got a big group here today. We will keep an eye on the chats. If we can't answer your questions, we'll follow up with you afterwards. But we're going to spend, let's say, the next 50 minutes going through what I think is one a really interesting topic, but equally important is it's now becoming a really common problem, right? So Christian and I'm going to do the front third, and Christian's going to do the middle, and then I'll come back and wrap things up at the end over the next almost hour-long session. But the key thing, and this is why I'm so excited to see so many people joining us, is as all of us start going down this path of AI in this new era of AI, we're starting to recognize that this is different than previous technology rollouts. And I want to spend some time taking you guys through what we have learned here at Adoptify AI from the way that we've been helping our customers. And as they go through their levels of maturity, think of it, of using AI, lessons learned and best practices as a result. And then letting you guys see those insights, and then, of course, ways that Adoptify AI can help you. Now, I always like stat slides like this. I put down at the bottom where the sources are, right? Because sometimes I always wonder if some of these things get made up and things like this. You guys can read the devil in the details. I should quickly mention, of course, this webinar is being recorded. Everyone's going to get a copy of the recording as well. So don't worry so much about taking any detailed notes and things like this. Obviously, we want you to reach out to us afterwards if you have any questions. But the three bubbles are really interesting, right? The one at the top, very common, which is there's a lot of experimentation going on by employees. A lot of what we call kind of shadow AI, like shadow IT, kind of unauthorized or unknown use of AI. And many companies haven't given a lot of guidance to their employees. Um, in combination with that is, we heard several months ago around a lot of AI initiatives stalling, right? And not getting the outcomes that they wanted. And as all of us dug deeper into it, it's not because of the technology. I mean, the technology, one, is really good and interesting and continues to improve. I mean, this is one of the blessings and the curse of AI is the continuous rate of change. But it's often because the people in the organization and the processes weren't ready for it, right? And it goes back to what I said earlier, which is AI is a different beast, right? This isn't like rolling out Microsoft Office to everyone, right? The key thing, and I want to get this out up front because I think it's really important, is the way AI is used is quite different by role and by team. And this is what's causing a lot of AI initiatives and deployments to stumble and stall, which is the person in finance, the person in marketing, the person in HR, they may all be using the same AI tool. I mean, maybe they're using Microsoft Copilot, but they're using it differently, right? And this is the benefit of AI is you can get very specific guidance and value out of the tool specific to your role, but it is different for every role. Therefore, different roles need different types of training, different types of policies, different types of best practices. In addition to AI being used differently by the role, teams are using it differently as well. And if you haven't heard the phrase, workflows, right? All of us during our day, we do a series of tasks, or tasks are how we do our job and stuff. If you put these all together, they're common workflows, right? In sales, how you do an order, how you place an order, how you do a quote, how you close an opportunity. These are all workflows. And within a team, AI can help optimize those workflows. And I think a lot of companies, where take you through some of the insights, are stumbling because they're not recognizing those two core issues. And then the other one is the executives, which is, you know, uh, I'm finding I don't have a lot of visibility into that level of detail, right? Because the classic model when AI came out a couple of years ago was, well, I'm going to treat it as a deployment. I bought all these licenses. How many people have activated their licenses? And, those are very early metrics around AI usage, but it doesn't capture the changes. It doesn't capture the change in productivity and stuff. So now executives are like, I spent this money, people are using Microsoft Copilot, but I'm not seeing the change. And they're also wanting to get into understanding why that is happening, and often as part of an inconsistent level of readiness. And think about this as an orchestrated movement, right? Maybe I'm going to use for the first time, an example of an orchestra, right? We all need to be in synchronization. We all need to be in tune. And if not, if one thing is out of step, the whole thing starts to slow down and sometimes can stumble. If the HR team isn't using the AI tools effectively, and marketing is, and sales isn't, then you're going to have this uneven rate of usage and utilization. And that's going to cause the teams working together to be working at different levels. All right, quick little poll check here. Um,
Ben, the only thing I'd add to that, just real quick, just because I think you did such a great job setting it up and then talking about the root causes. If any of you have been following the news or just following X and the Twitter sphere lately, this is really also coming to head. We're at that point in the maturity phase where a lot of the employers are now starting to not only trying to struggle with understanding where their organizations are from a readiness perspective, but they're now actually starting to question their investments and starting to rethink those investments. And clearly that's a part of the phase that we want to make sure the customers, partners, and employers that we're working with don't ever get to. But you're starting to see that rear its head more and more. The CEO of Uber just came out and reflected on that recently, and it's becoming more and more prevalent. So this is just really timely as well.
yeah, no, excellent insight, right? There's more so than ever a sharpened attention being put on kind of ROI.
Yeah.
And, am I getting the returns that I'm making, both from a financial point of view, but just the time to make these changes, right? So there's return on investment, financial investment, people investment, organizational time, and all the rest. So while we were talking, have a look at this thing, drop it into the chat what your answers are. I'll consolidate them, and in a couple of slides, I'll give you the results. But all of us, and there's a lot of us in even today's webinar, we're all at different levels, right? And, all of us, are to some degree probably having some kind of a gap, right? There's very few companies that have figured this thing out, right? We're all figuring it out. We're all doing it in little bits and pieces. Are you an A? Are you a B? Are you a C? Or are you a D? Just pick one, right? When I looked at this, I was like, well, I could see some companies maybe being, two answers and things like this. But, are you experimenting it with it? Are you an A, right? Are you deploying it, but you're seeing uneven adoption? Or you a C, right? Which is, yeah, people are, we rolled it out, people are adopting it. But we're now starting to find out that, we didn't put some guidelines or guardrails in place, right? Now that people are like, well, hey, I can use this tool, you know, can I use it to help create a public facing report? Can I use it to do performance reviews of my employees? What are those guardrails, right? And then D, you know, we're not sure what's going on, but we're not quite getting the outcomes that we wanted, and we're not sure, whether it's a people issue, an organization issue. We don't know what the core blocker is. So an A, B, C, or D. Drop them in the chat, and then before I hand things over to Christian, I'll come back and summarize that. But I think this leads into probably one of the most interesting insights from all the customers that we have helped is AI continues to get rapidly used by organizations, whether they are driving it or whether their employees are doing it on their own. AI adoption is happening really, really quick. We just look at the stats of usage from OpenAI and their ChatGPT tools. Look at the stats from Microsoft and Copilot, right? Like AI is it's moving, it's going ahead, right? The key thing is we as organizations, right, are not keeping up with AI, right? And when we dug into it, it really is kind of three things, right? You can see four examples here on the right, but I would classify them in terms of, are your people ready? Is your organization ready? And then do you have that trust in government's guardrail in place? Now, that last one, adopted by AI, right? We've been around for a couple of years. Last year that wasn't a really common issue, right? Like last year, a lot of our companies were focused on, of course, you got to get your people ready. Oh, by the way, now we're figured out we got to get our organization ready. We got to get the teams ready. We got to get the workflows looked at and optimized and changed and things like this. But, starting last year, a lot of organizations also started to worry around the misuse of AI, right? And to some degree, it's the ethical use, but equally as important is, well, wait a minute, I'm now finding out that these AI tools aren't perfect, and they can make mistakes. And the term hallucinations started to pop up a lot in the AI world. And that made a lot of leadership teams and companies that are using AI nervous. And they're like, okay, what are we doing to make sure that we have these controls in place, this governance in place, so that we can have a level of trust that it's not just about getting the employees ready, but validating that they're ready. It's not just about, getting the company ready, but making sure we have a way of assessing it through acceptable use policies, controls, the ability to audit things and stuff like this. So things started to when we looked at companies that were struggling, it was usually a combination of one or more of these three different things. Christian, thoughts on this? I'm going to go to the next slide. You're on mute, Christian.
Thank you, Ben. No, I think you nailed it. I think again, it kind of speaks to the synchronization that has to happen across the readiness from a employee perspective, an organization perspective, and then how to apply that in real terms. And you mentioned that very well in terms of the root causes there.
I just liked that you were on mute while you're talking. So you're the first person. I was wondering if it was going to be you or me who was going to fall into
It always
you're
happens
muted.
once. Always happens
But
at least once.
yeah, well, I'm glad to get out of the way, right? Because both of us are going to make real sure we're muted when appropriate and not when needed. But in the bottom right-hand corner, this is the way we start to tease out this problem of how do I, one, start getting an effective um, return on investment, that I start getting an effective use of my AI, and equally, and this is really starting to pop up in the last several months, how do I accelerate it, right? So companies are like, okay, look, I'm not getting, the efficiencies that I hope by using AI, and help me fix it, and then help me do it faster, right? Because there's this growing sense that the AI technologies continue to improve, and the gap between the capabilities of the technology and the capabilities of the people in the organization was a problem and continues to widen. And now we get this notion of acceleration. So the bottom right hand corner really lays that out nicely, right? Your people are on a journey to getting ready. Your organization is on a journey to getting ready. And your state of governance, right? Your level of trust has its own readiness journey. And we separate out those three different things. And this is where, when you work with Adoptify AI, right? Our mental model, so to speak, is these three tracks need to work together. And if one or two of these tracks are not where they need to be, it pulls down, it slows down, it stalls the entire company, right? The one on the left, that's the easiest one, right? I'm rolling out a new technology. I need to get people ready. Yes, that is true. Like I said earlier, probably the nuance on this track of getting people ready is understanding that different roles were going to require different types of training. And what I mean by that is, here is how AI is being used by a financial analyst. Here's how AI is being used by someone in marketing. Two different needs, right? So it's not like, oh, they need, different types of training. It's the topics, it's the use cases and things like this. The one in the middle is the one that a lot of companies are kind of struggling with, as a common one, which is, okay, what do you mean by getting my organization ready, right? This is where, and I mentioned it earlier, this notion of workflow and tasks and process, right? There are many tasks that now can be automated by AI, right? These typically are repetitive things. Tasks are part of workflows. Well, workflows now, AI can help augment them, right? They're not, really, automating workflows from end to end. Workflows tend to be, fairly complex, but they certainly can have an impact. And that means you need to redesign it. And if you don't, you roll out AI and nothing changes. Well, why didn't anything change? Well, you didn't change your workflows, right? You trained your people, but they're still doing their job the old way, right? This is where, a lot of companies tend to start to stumble, is on the org readiness side. And then the last one is, I always think of this as kind of, documentation side of things, in audit and policies and things like this. And and typical technologies rollout, yeah, they're important, but it was in the realm of IT, right? Like IT always has the rules, right? AI is a powerful tool. Used effectively, it really can help the company become more efficient, right? Used incorrectly, it can actually be very dangerous to the company, right? And we're continue to hear examples of how companies who are inadvertently using tools and not double checking the output of their AI tools and accepting it at face value and then making decisions or publishing documents and things like this on a set of faulty outputs from their AI tools. So those three tracks, right? They're always moving at different speeds, right? The trick is to try and get them all moving at the same speed, right? And again, getting your people ready, yeah, a little bit different, but we know how to do that. Getting your org ready, yeah, workflow redesign, that's a little tricky. And then this trust side of things, yeah, it's paperwork and trackability or the ability to go and do audits to make sure these things are being, complied with and stuff like this. But they typically tend to move, if you don't manage them, they move at different speeds. Well, the trick is, how do you manage them, right? I took you through kind of those three um, tracks, right? The people track, the org track, the trust and governance track. We have a model that we call the three by three, right? And in addition to these three layers, right, these three tracks, we also understand when we work with companies that they're typically at three different levels of AI maturity, three different stages of their journey, right? And these stages impact what you need to do on getting your people ready and your org ready and getting that trust and governance put into place. Okay. How do you move faster? Right? Remember that notion of acceleration, right? Companies are like, okay, not only do we got to fix this, but we got to do it real fast, right? Because it continues to change. How do you do it? You start managing these things together. Now, what do I mean by these different stages of your journey, right? This AI maturity. Well, that comes down to, are you adopting AI? That's stage one. Are you adapting AI? That's stage two. I'll take you through that. And then stage three is, well, once you've adopted the technology, you have adapted how you work, both at the individual level, at the team level, at the company level. You've done the adaptation. Well, then you want to accelerate it and you want to roll it out across the company and then also understand the journey never ends, right? Because the tools that you're using when it comes to AI, they are not static. The technology continues to accelerate, gosh, in some cases on a weekly basis, it feels like, right? I use several tools, and most days when I start my tools, they're like, there's a new version available, or we've updated your version like overnight, right? So in stage one, you're looking at it, you're looking at AI, you're evaluating it. Many companies are at this early stage, right? And you can see, well, what are the signs that indicate that you're at this level, right? People are experimenting. You got some teams maybe playing with it. Leadership's like, yeah, I'm hearing about it, and stuff like this. Well, at this level of your journey, at this stage of your journey, right, you need to start doing your foundational work, assessing your people, assessing your org, assessing your governance, your policies, and things like this, and get that baseline put into place. All right. You're not at the stage yet of training tons of people and doing workflow redesign. You're at the early stage, right? Now, if you don't do this groundwork, if you don't do this foundational work, right, then what happens is, and a lot of companies are like, yeah, 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 I get it, right? Like, let's get to the next stage, right? Let's get to the adapting stage. How am I going to change things? If you don't do this work, right, it's a very uneven foundation and it's going to come back and get you, right? And again, you need to do all three: assess your people, your organization, and your policies and your procedures, your governance side of things, right? Now, we help companies that are in stage one to do all these different things, right? But it's the framework itself, whatever you do in this, at the end of this webinar, understand the model of the three by three. I actually think works well for anyone, right? You're at three stages, right? You're adopting AI, you're adapting to AI, you're accelerating your use of AI across your organization. And as you go down the journey, you got to make sure your people continue to evolve and get ready, your organization continues to evolve and get ready, and your trust and governance continues to evolve and get ready. Every stage along the way, what you do to get your people ready is different. When you're at the early stages, you're assessing your people. When you're at the later stage of acceleration, right? Well, now your people already have that basic AI literacy, they have that role specific training. Now you give them more advanced capabilities. Now you're helping them build their own agents and things like this. So even the people track evolve as you go down those journey stages, right? Let's look at stage two, right? Stage two, adapting, right? You got your people going, you're starting to think about your organization, right? Now you're looking for some consistency, right? Remember how we said before, you know, if different people and teams are at different levels relative to where they should be, now your people readiness is uneven, right? If you haven't done and looked into your workflows. And what that means is, every team, if you're marketing, sales, finance, there's usually 3 to 5 core workflows they do, right? That this the if you're in the marketing team, there's these things. If you're in HR, there's these common workflows. You want to get into understanding what those workflows are, what people are involved, what tasks are involved, and then saying, okay, how can AI change and optimize this workflow, this is versus this workflow? If you're not changing your workflows, you simply will not get a lot of value out of using AI. Okay. AI requires redesigning how your workflows work, both within your teams and across your teams, right? And you can see this in number two, kind of what needs to happen, right? The signs are, right? You got good adoption, right? Remember that's stage one. You got good adoption, right? People are using it, right? Maybe unevenly and stuff like this, right? But they're not changing the way that they work. There comes the redesign of those workflows. That's literally doing workflow redesign workshops. How's that for a new interesting set of capabilities, right? You need to not just do workshops for your people, you got to do workshops for your workflows, right? Now, if you don't do this, right, if you're at stage two and you're not doing it, you're not getting that repeatability, which is now people are doing workflow A in a new way, taking advantage of how AI can help automate certain steps in the workflow, augment people's capabilities in that workflow, right? If you're not doing the redesign of your workflows, then some people may be, oh, by the way, there's a better way of doing this. And the other people are like, well, I didn't know about that, right? And again, you're getting that uneven side of things, right? This stage is about trying to get things into reuse and redesign, right? And if you don't, then you get a lot of momentum, right? Because you spend a lot of effort around training the people, showing them the capabilities of AI, hopefully getting them, excited about how this can help them be more productive by automating some tasks, by augmenting their capabilities, right? But now they come up against, oh, wait a minute, we haven't redesigned or thought through the impact on how the workflows happen.
Yeah.
Now, the third stage, right, and then I'm going to hand things over to Christian, both for a deeper dive on the how, right, and then you don't have to listen to me anymore until the end. But if you're at stage three, not many companies we're working with yet are at stage three, but remember the goal is we all want to be at stage three, right? And the question is, how quickly can you get your company going from adopting a technology, adapting to the technologies, and then accelerating it and then doing it in a scalable, repeatable way. Well, Christian's going to take you through our thoughts on that scalable, repeatable way. But stage three is now you got your people in alignment, you got your teams starting to get in alignment, you got your workflows in alignment. Now you just want to do more of the same at scale, right? What does that mean? All core workflows have been redesigned. All teams not just know how to use AI within the teams, but across the teams. Now that's where you get some magic happening, right? Ben knows how to do it as an individual. He knows how to use, Microsoft Copilot. The team that he's part of, maybe I'm part of the sales team. The sales team is now using Microsoft Copilot to better prepare for meetings, to do quotes faster, to do better proposals and things like this. The team's ready. But remember, sales teams, well, we work with the marketing team, right? We want leads and qualified customers coming in. And we also work with their operational teams, the fulfillment teams. How one team uses AI to better work with other teams, now you're getting that cross enterprise alignment, right? This is where things like playbooks start to come into being, right? Stage two, right? A lot of it's around workflows and stuff like this. Stage three is about playbooks, right? And playbooks give you that repeatability, right? This is how you do things. This is literally the play by play. And now they're cross team, they're cross functional. It's the sales roles and the marketing roles and the operational fulfillment roles working together. And then, like I put in number two, because I liked it, is this notion of now you're in a rhythm, right? Now everyone understands the new expectations, the new handoffs, the new ways of doing things. Most companies here at stage three, they're at the level of um, getting, two-thirds, three-quarters, right, of their people, their teams, their workflows, their cross-team collaboration, but it's not at 100%. So stage three is about getting 100% or 100% of your people ready and operating. Is your organization ready? Are the workflows done? All the workflows, all the core workflows done, not just some in some teams. Do you have your playbooks done? Do you have your cross-functional team playbooks done? And how do you get to that 100%? So these companies are now trying to move from 80% to 100% across those three different tracks. Now, I took you through that three by three, right? The three tracks, right? Getting your people ready, getting your organization ready, getting that trust and governance layer, that track put into place, and then explain how it changes over the time of your journey, right? What you need to do to get your people ready at stage one of adoption is a lot of assessment. Stage two of your journey, right? When you're adopting to using AI, now you're starting to train people and getting your people ready around these new workflows and things like that. So that's what I call the three by three model. Now, Christian, I'm going to hand things over to you, and I'm going to keep an eye on the chat because I see a bunch of questions coming in. Take us through, I don't know, like I heard this phrase, the operating model, right? Help us understand what an operating model is, how we have our own operating model, and then take us through it. How about that? And you're off mute, so
That's
that's
great.
you're off to a good start.
All right. Off to a good start, you said. Thank you, Ben. Ben, you did a great job of setting up the case for change here. You articulated well what's going on in the market, what organizations are facing, and how to think about where they are on that journey and across those different dimensions. And when you talk about 100% in phase three, of course, you don't mean that 100% means done, right? I think we all recognize the fact that in this world that we're living in, this is going to be a continuous journey that every organization goes through. But when we talk about 100%, it's really about how that enablement, the workflow, and the embedded nature of those workflows in the organizations, the roles and teams, and the governance all come together and align at scale. And that's sort of what we think about as at phase three. And now it's about how do we get and help organizations get to phase three and operate along that journey using that operating model. And that's really where what we call adapt op comes in. Adapt ops really, it's, as I mentioned, it's not a one-time engagement. It's not a training event. It's a repeatable operating system that we think about using to align the people, the workflow and the systems, if you will, the operating model there, and then the governance all together. And it allows us to align that. And it starts, it's a multi-phase process, as you could imagine. And it starts with discovery. And in that phase, as you'd imagine, we're assessing where the people are in terms of their readiness and from an employee perspective and different teams and how they're working. We're looking at the workflows and how people are applying that in a repeatable fashion into those playbooks. And then we're looking at the governance and we're assessing how in sync or out of sync those are. And then we build readiness scores and we identify the friction points in that process. And this allows us to establish the baseline. And then once we've done that, we move to a pilot phase. And we launch really and focus on high value areas where while building that alignment from day one. And it's really important to pick the right areas or the ones that have the highest value, right? Because we recognize you can't cover the entire enterprise all at once, nor should you. You should focus on where you're going to get the most value. And so that means the pilot is not just about whether people like a tool or even trained on a tool. It's about whether the workflows and the enablement, the measurement of that, and the governance are all moving together. And we do that on a pilot basis so we can prove out the fact that those different pieces can move together and ultimately think about it as a thin slice of proving out the operating system and that those things are all working together. And then once you've done that, that's when we focus on scale, right? And that's when we're looking at expanding what works and building that into, as Ben mentioned, those repeatable playbooks. We're looking at the role-based and team-based enablement, and then looking at the governance that needs to be in place, and then tying all those things together in a repeatable fashion. And then once we do that, we turn to the final phase here, where we focus on embedding this deeply into the organization and into the DNA of the employees and the organization. So we're turning that AI readiness into an operating capability that I mentioned before is really focused on getting that operating system in place that allows us to look at it on a continuous basis, right? So it allows for the continuous measurement, allows for reassessing on a constant basis where the organization is, and then optimizing. Because remember, 100% doesn't mean you're done. 100% means these things are working together in the operating system. And then by embedding this, it gives us that repeatable process and that continuous journey that feeds into itself, this virtuous cycle that doesn't end. It doesn't end with one rollout, and it embeds it into the organization, I said. So, once you've embedded it, you could think about that process being that virtuous cycle. Embed feeds back into discovery as tools evolve, because they will, as Ben mentioned. Every day is something that is mind-blowing. The markets change, the industries change, the organizational shifts happen. Organizations reimagine how they're organized in this world we're living in, right? And so that's why all this comes together. And that's why ultimately this is important, right? So the people readiness, the org readiness, and the trust and governance are present at every phase of the process, right? So
Yeah,
what
I
does that
love it.
look like? What does that look like in real life? Ben, if you want to move to the next slide. Just to give you to ground this in an example that we have here, and we've with one of our organizations that we've worked with. This is a concrete example. This is a 4-week co-pilot activation effort for a mid-market enterprise with roughly 65 licenses. And during that process, what we saw is we were able to get the client to a point of which 98% activation from active, what we call active adoption. We looked at it as well across those workflows and across kind of the core tasks that the employees were doing, and we were able to reclaim 310 hours in the first 4 weeks across those users on an ongoing basis. And then we were able to measure, we actually have the ability to measure because this was Copilot specific, we were looking at the actual Copilot actions, and we saw roughly 5,000 actions in play here. And the important part isn't the numbers themselves, right? This isn't just about, hey, these are great stats and that tells the whole story. It's about what produced the numbers, right? This was not a case where, and nor is it ever, and I'm guessing many of you on the call experience this on a daily basis. It's not the case where licenses were just purchased and adoption magically happened. The results here came from this adoption system we talked about, the operating model we put in place, the work we did with the organization to help them understand where they are in the journey and customize the process by which they can execute. And so that included things like AI literacy boot camps and role-based Copilot playbooks. We did a bunch of workflow activation there. As well, on the governance side, we thought about the guardrails. We did things like prompt patterns and prompt libraries, and then we built the usage dashboards that allowed leaders and ourselves to demonstrate the progress and the impact that was happening. So again, a broken record on this. Ben mentioned it as well, but it sort of stressed the fact that the people readiness, the org readiness, and the governance were addressed together. Even though it was a small scale, it still showed how they all came together. And so, Copilot didn't deliver these results alone. It's that operating system, the adoption system that brought that together. And that methodology we applied for Copilot in this case, we apply it as well to other tools like Gemini and Claude, et cetera, that we see used widely across different organizations. And even so now, more and more, we're seeing hybrid scenarios where organizations are using multiple tools and are coming to us with questions about how to bring those together and measure the effectiveness. And so at the end of the day, really, that adoption system is what turns, the work into this measurable behavioral change. So that's just one example. So, the title, I think, for this slide speaks to itself, right? Most organizations, our hypothesis is most organizations don't have an AI adoption problem. They have a readiness synchronization problem. Again, it's bringing all those things together. Because I think if you looked at any organization, there's probably pockets where you've got employees that are deep champions and doing well, but it's not repeatable, right? You've got governance in place, but it's not necessarily where it needs to be. You've got the workflows and everything that are kind of in different pockets, but again, not bringing all the light. And so it's really how do you synchronize it and bring those things together, as we talked about. So what does misaligned readiness look like? Some of the symptoms that we see in real life, and sort of what do the outputs look like when we get it right? When readiness is out of sync, as I mentioned, you see a lot of employee experimentation. but leadership lacks visibility or is questioning the impact, or can't understand how it's happening across the organization in a way. But when it moves together, that adoption is clear, it's visible, it's guided, and it's measurable. And leadership feels good about the investments we're making, and employees feel like they are more ready and able to do their jobs effectively. When we think about, again, when readiness out of sync, you see teams are moving at different speeds, right? But when it's in sync and moving together, you've got those playbooks, and those playbooks create the consistency across functions and across those roles, and allow teams to operate more cohesively, and it allows for the use and leverage of those playbooks or those learnings across the organization, so things aren't happening in pockets. Other symptoms of when things are out of sync, the policies lag behind real usage, right? And so you've got a lot of usage, but your risk department or your auditors are super concerned. Your compliance folks are super concerned about what might be happening or what might be happening out of compliance. When it moves together, the governance is keeping pace with adoption, and you have confidence that what's happening is happening with trust, that company secrets aren't leaving the organization, that people aren't unintentionally doing things they don't mean to do. And when tools are deployed before workflows are redesigned, you see that AI remains disconnected from the work that's most important. But when it moves together, that's when AI becomes embedded into the actual workflows that are most important in creating that value. And this is really, we talk about it all the time, the difference between activity and impact, or activity and capability. Um, Activity tells a story of that people are doing things and there's a lot getting done. And you're seeing a lot of that in an organization where there's a lot of AI activity. But when you take a step back, or you talk to the leaders, or you look at what's the research that's coming out, most organizations have a hard time expressing that in capability, interpret that as confidence or as impact, and hard time measuring it. And that's why they are questioning those investments. So the capability tells the organization that they can do it in a repeated way, they can do it responsibly, and they can do it at scale.
All right, so Christian, in the interest of time, there's a lot of chitter chatter in the chat around. Okay, hey, I get it, right? I'm at this stage. My company's at this stage. We're good on this track around people, but not maybe on org. Certainly not on trust and governance. Seems to be the common thing. What I'm going to do in the interest of time is jump right to kind of our solutions, because they're like, hey, I get it, right? Like, what do you guys have for solutions? One of the things we've done at Adoptify AI is create kind of a set of packages, right? Think of them as solutions based on where you are on your stage of your journey. Are you at the early stage of adopting AI? Are you adapting your people, your workflows, your organization to the usage of AI? Or are you, the Holy Grail? You're getting there. You think you got it pretty much worked out. And how do we go and scale this thing and make it a repeatability? Well, at Adoptify AI, what we've done is created packages, right? The key thing here is the packages are starting points. If you actually go to our website, adoptify.ai, you can go and see what's in these packages. The thing I always like to call out is they are relatively short packages, right? They're designed to get you from one stage to the next. And this isn't a 1 year consulting thing where we go and say, well, this is what you should do, right? These are packages where we come in, embed ourselves with your teams, and get things done, right? And every package is designed to be scoped. Maybe you don't need this. Maybe you've already done some of it. Maybe you also need, I don't know, some custom agents designed or something like this. But we give everyone those starting points. And This is where I wanted to end things today was one, we took you through the three by three, three stages, three tracks of readiness, people, org, trust, and governance, right? The stages of adopting, and accelerating. The notion that you really want to put into place an operating model, right? It's not just about getting you to the final stage of acceleration. The reality is you're going to do this over and over again because your companies are going to continue to adopt new AI technologies and have to get used to the changes in the technologies that you already have deployed, right? So this continuous repeatability model becomes really important. So with all this stuff, the goal that Christian and I had today is one, where do you place yourself on that three by three grid, right? What stage are you at? How well are you doing on each of those tracks? And if you need help either aligning your tracks, right? People and org and trust and governance, and or getting to the next stage of your journey, right? Going from adopting to adapting to accelerating, this is where we come in and help you every step of the way, right? So if you want to continue this conversation, reach out to the website, fill out the contact us form, and let's continue this conversation. If you're not at the point of needing your help, or maybe you have things under control, I hope you got value out of today's session. Now, with that said, let's wrap things up and let's get everyone back to work on a Thursday.
Yeah. A special thank you to Ben and Christian for sharing such a thoughtful, experience-led insights with us today. We hope today's conversations helps reflect where your organization stands. It's in a AI adoption journey, and what it will take to turn AI tools into meaningful everyday impact. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
everybody. Thank you, Ben. Great discussion. Appreciate it.